Only one of a kind, and the Liberals are glad of that. Well, our final speaker this morning is a combat-decorated U.S. Marine, a #1 best-selling author. In fact, he has his brand new book available by Oliver North called Counterfeit Lies. He'll be doing a book signing right after he finishes speaking, so you want to be sure to pick up a copy of that. Also a successful businessman with 3 U.S. patents, dedicated columnist and the host of War Stories on Fox News Channel. He is also the founder of Freedom Alliance, a foundation providing support to injured military heroes and college scholarships to the sons and daughters of U.S. military personnel killed in the line of duty. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in welcoming Colonel Oliver North.
Thank you. Thank you, Gil. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. Actually, it's still morning. My mission, no, it is afternoon, isn't it? My mission is to get you out for lunch, close to on time. The photos you see on the screen were taken by Chuck Holton, my combat cameraman, who, by the way, that final shot is of the next Commandant of the Marine Corps fighting Joe Dunford, taken last year while we were in Iraq. For 13 years, it has been my privilege to report on and document the finest military force the world has ever known. During our 57 embeds in the shadows of the Hindu Kush, Iraq, Africa, the Philippines, Central America, the stars of my reports, documentaries, and books have been the bravest and best of this generation, and they truly are America's heroes. Fox sends me out often to speak to young people. I can say that at 71. Most of them are. Fox sends me out to speak to young people, and I say the word heroes very often. I know I've conjured up in the minds of those who are there in the audience the idea of someone who catches the pass in the end zone or sets a new mountain climbing record, or even someone wearing a spandex suit and a cape in a comic book. That's a hero. Well, my heroes wear flak jackets and combat boots and flight suits, and they go to work in some of the most difficult and dangerous places on the planet Earth. Real heroes, you see, are selfless. They put themselves at risk for the benefit of others. And because the mainstream media won't tell the truth, and because I'm the chairman of the NRA's Veterans and Military Affairs Committee of our Board of Directors, they put together what you're about to see, a video of what this generation's great American heroes really look like. Look at this. Since 9/11, more than 2.5 million young Americans have forfeited the comforts of home, absented themselves from the affection of loved ones, and gone into harm's way to protect us. For the very first time, think of this, the very first time in history since the American Revolution, every single person serving in an American uniform in time of war is a volunteer. Hasn't happened in any war since the one that gave us our liberty. They came because of some terrible events. This footage right here just shows some of what they can do. You can see more if you go to olivernorth.com or the NRA website, Life of Duty, and you can see what they look like doing the things that they do so very, very well. These are truly remarkable young people. They deserve better than what they are getting from this administration. From some of the tens of thousands of miles of footage that we have shot over those 57 embeds, my producers picked out some frames, literally, you're going to see why they came. It's because of this. Even the ones I interviewed last week out at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, who were in grade school when this happened, what you're looking at on the screen, they came because of this. They came because they know what happened that terrible day 13 years ago this month. And they don't want it to ever happen again. And we were promised, when this administration came to office in 2009, that they were going to, quote, end the war responsibly. Speed up those slides, guys, because we got to get through this. I'm pushing those. Can't beat the dogs, gang. But don't want to short sight them because they're the best thing you've got for sniffing out a bomb. The young Americans came because they wanted to fight for our country. They wanted to serve our nation. They wanted to make sure that terrorism was wiped clean. They wanted to make sure that it couldn't be exported to this country again. And they were told that this administration was going to, quote, end the war responsibly. These youngsters became the protectors of Muslim women and children. These frames are not staged. This is real. This is what they do. And those youngsters who you see gathered in prayer circles, those youngsters you see huddled up saying a prayer, didn't come because they were told to. I want to see the ACLU go after those youngsters for praying on government time. They are brighter, better educated, trained, and led than any military force in history. They volunteered to protect us from an enemy that is dying to kill us. When you see them gathered together like that, they know they're not going out on a football field on Friday night. They're going into mortal combat against an enemy that intends to die. And they deserve better from a commander-in-chief garbed as a Nobel laureate, trotting around the world, kowtowing to foreign leaders, and apologizing for America. Americans have nothing for which we need to apologize. We saw it happen again this week up at the United Nations. Don't we deserve, and don't they who've sacrificed so much deserve, a commander-in-chief who knows America, the greatest force for good in the world that the world has ever known, doesn't need to apologize for the sacrifices made by them and their families to protect us and offer others the hope of freedom? I think we do. The members of our armed forces and their families deserve better than being treated like laboratory rats in a radical social engineering experiment. Christians in Iraq and Syria who've been killed by the thousands over the course of the last 6 months are paying the terrible price for the ineptness and incompetence that has run this country into the ground for the last 6 years. And that's something we need to resonate across America as we look forward to replacing and hiring a new commander-in-chief and in 39 days electing a Congress that understands it as well. I maintain that we're all paying a terrible price for America's, if you will, leadership deficit disorder, the utopian rush to total disarmament. We don't need a commander-in-chief or a head of state who guts our defenses, draws phony red lines with a pink crayon, and then fails to stand up and keep someone from crossing it. Our leader ought to be trusted by our allies and respected or even feared by our adversaries. And between now and 2016, when we hire a new commander-in-chief, we need a majority in Congress who understands the rule of law and the Constitution of the United States. If you'll allow me, I want to make this personal. Our children, and our now 14 and a half grandchildren, are threatened by a mountain of debt, unconstrained spending, and ever higher taxes, and a headlong rush to socialism. Our Congress must be held accountable for what they are supposed to do to hold an administration accountable, one that offers the protection of our Constitution to our enemies, but strips those same protections from the American people. We need a Congress that will stop this administration from perpetrating frontal assaults on free enterprise, private property, and the civil liberties enshrined in our Bill of Rights. We need a Congress that will use the power of the purse to defend our national sovereignty, our borders, and stop the O-Team from subordinating the wealth of our nation to a globalist agenda that limits our use of our own energy resources. The Obamacare debacle is but the tip of the incompetence and corruption rampant in Washington. We, the people, the first three words of our Constitution, must demand accountability for a string of horrific scandals and cover-ups. Fast and Furious, Benghazi, the IRS enemies list, government spying on American citizens. Some of that began yesterday when Eric Holder, thank God, decided to get out of town. The words "we the people" is not a political slogan. It's a way of life. Commitments aren't just what we say. Commitments are what we do. The framers who crafted our Constitution were counting on we the people to hold government accountable. Some say it's okay to ignore the so-called social issues like marriage, the sanctity of life, or religious freedoms. I say those aren't social issues at all. They're deeply moral and spiritual issues, and they should matter in every election. I just want you to understand, I know that this is a nonpartisan organization, so let me put it to you this way. In the 1850s, a political movement began on a great moral issue. It was founded on a great spiritual issue of the day, the abolition of human bondage, slavery in America. If we cease to be a home in that particular political party for people of faith and those who believe strongly in moral and spiritual issues, that party will cease to be a political force for good, no matter who our candidates are and what they stand for. In short, that party has to be a home for those of us who fear God and the wrath that will follow when we reject Him. Our greatness was built on the shoulders of people who staked their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on a Creator who endowed us with inalienable rights and responsibilities. They made a commitment. Well, let me show you a contemporary definition of commitment. This, what you're about to see, is a Marine captain by the name of Matt Lampert. He's on his second combat tour in Afghanistan, and I put a microphone on him, and we put this in the file because Fox didn't necessarily think it was appropriate for a young audience. This is a measure of commitment. Watch Matt Lampert.
My name is Captain Matt Lampert. This is my second combat deployment to Afghanistan. And I just wish American people would understand there's a lot of people here that still believe in what we're doing out here and are willing to come back again and again to prove that point.
We couldn't put it on the air, and we couldn't tell people that Matt Lampert's wife, Matt's a graduate of the small boat and barge school, the trade school I attended on the banks of the Severn River. He'd been an enlisted Marine, and then he went through the Naval Academy, took his commission in the Marines on his second combat tour, and he is married to a Marine helicopter pilot. Quite a commitment. I'm asking you to make a commitment here today. I'm not going to ask you to make that kind of commitment like Matt did. But I am asking you to make a commitment when you go back home to inspire our countrymen to reject ideas like unilateral disarmament to achieve peace, to dismiss the concept of spending our way out of debt or regulating our way to prosperity. I'm asking you to inspire others that we might elect those who know we cannot surrender our sovereignty to assure security. I urge you to make a commitment today to assert the moral authority of a free people. The next election is just 39 days away. Make a commitment now, here, to elect a Congress that will preserve freedom and opportunity in America, who will stand up for the liberties granted to us by our Creator and protected by our Constitution. We owe that much to the young Americans who risked their lives for us in difficult and dangerous places. I started this afternoon talking about heroes. The president that I was blessed to serve told us that we have a rendezvous with destiny. He asked us to commit ourselves to ensure, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, that we would ensure government of, by, and for the people, that it will not perish from this earth. We often hear that we don't have heroes anymore. Let me close with this from that commander-in-chief who called me a hero, though I've never thought of myself as one. Here he speaks of real heroes, and the kind of leadership that we need is reflected in what he's going to say.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
So, we Americans have the chance to fix it. We Americans, if we want our nation to remain the land of the free, we are going to have to take a stand and make a commitment and show our friends and our adversaries that we are still the home of the brave. God bless you, and thank you for being here today. Semper Fi.